Hi and welcome. My name is Christina Seston and you're watching The Truth About Juvenile Obesity. My guest today is Dr. Kim, and Dr. Kim has been a regular guest with me on this series of shows. Welcome, Dr. Kim. Thanks for being here with me today. Dr. Kim is a PhD from MIT, and as I mentioned, we're here to talk about juvenile obesity. So let's start by looking at some statistics. Right off the bat, we know that there's been a 200% increase in obesity in the last 25 years. We know that the U.S. Surgeon General is currently referring to obesity as a national epidemic. 61% of Americans are obese, and of that 61%, 25% are children. And that's why we're here today. Dr. Kim, what are the consequences of something like this?
At first, our children already begin to show the symptoms of chronic degenerative diseases such as diabetes, hypertension, arteriosclerosis. They used to be old age diseases, but these days children already begin to show these symptoms.
So children are having old people diseases right now.
And then as they grow older, these symptoms become more and more serious.
So it's almost like life is being taken away from them prematurely.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's a physical consequence. There must be other consequences to
Mental
this.
consequences.
Yeah.
Low self-esteem.
Absolutely.
And then they are being bullied.
Right.
And they are likely to become bullies themselves.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, if you're a child and at an early age you determine that, you know, living in this thin, obsessed culture that we do, that you don't fit the norm, you know it, your classmates know it, so you're going to be a target. And so is there a correlation with being bullied and then turning around and bullying other students?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And discrimination.
Yeah, of course.
And then this mental trauma,
right.
it remains for the rest of their lives.
Impacts us forever and ever.
That's correct.
Yeah. So Dr. Kim, we've heard the term overweight, we've heard the term obese. What's the difference?
Overweight is your health is being impaired
Right.
by too much weight. But obesity means your life being cut short.
So more serious.
Yes.
More serious.
Yeah.
And so when we take into account all of these consequences, which are far-reaching, their children are being impacted by old age diseases, I mean, the emotional trauma, the discrimination. I mean, it begs the question: what's leading to this obesity?
You mean the causes?
What are the causes?
There are many, but let's start one by one.
Yes.
I'd like to mention two food ingredients. One is high fructose corn syrup.
High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though the name is fructose, it has nothing to do with fruit.
So okay, so we will see fructose on the ingredient labels.
You will see that name in ingredient list
Right.
very often.
Okay.
Yeah. So this high fructose corn syrup has
Right.
been used since 1971.
So not that long, relatively speaking.
Yeah, and then it is the cause of insulin resistance that leads to diabetes, obesity, hypertension, arteriosclerosis.
Right.
And then food industry began to use fructose so much, and then for commercial reasons at first.
More economical. There's
That's correct.
greater
For example,
savings.
yeah, there are longer shelf life,
Right. Okay.
and then the better taste.
Right.
Basically, they could cut the cost by 20% for some soft drink companies like Pepsi and Coke.
Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah.
Right. That's
so
significant.
for commercial reasons,
Right.
they began to use a lot of corn syrup. And the other thing I'd like to mention is palm oil.
Right. So another ingredient that
Yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
be looking for on the ingredient list.
That's correct. And palm oil, it sounds so healthy. It's from the vegetable, but
Right.
palm oil is such a highly saturated oil. So the health risk is quite obvious there.
Right. Why are we using palm oil now?
The shelf life is longer, and then food looks better, and then mouthfeel, which is the lingering taste after you take
How we
it.
experience it as
That's
we're actually
correct.
eating it,
Yeah.
right?
So for these commercial reasons, they use a lot of palm oils.
Right. So overall, what you're saying, we need to be more conscious when we're in the grocery store, looking at the
correct.
ingredient list. So we're looking for fructose, or we're looking for palm oil, and these are things to avoid from what you're saying, if
Those-
possible.
yeah,
Is
yeah.
it possible?
It's getting more and more difficult, but it's possible.
So you mentioned causes plural.
Oh yeah.
What are some
For
other
example, there
causes
are-
of juvenile obesity?
Yeah. For example, the economic and social reasons. Industry-wise, the food companies, they became too big. In order for them to survive, they should make us eat even when we are not hungry. So they did all kinds of things. So so-called food scientists, they invented something called appetite-inducing food additives, hunger-inducing
Something
food
to make me hungrier.
yeah, even though you are not really hungry. And also they played with a lot of this psychological tricks, such as you must have seen the documentary called Super Size Me. Have you seen
Yes,
it?
yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they just tested so many techniques. So by increasing the size of one portion, actually they could raise the revenue without really increasing the cost.
This sounds morally unscrupulous.
Yeah. So as a consequence, one portion has 300% calories than they used to have. Of course.
So my Big Mac and fries and soft drink
That's correct.
are giving me a lot more caloric intake than they would have 5 years, 10 years ago. So
That's
is
correct.
that what you're saying?
That's correct.
This is spooky. So you're telling me there's things in my food that I'm eating that are going to increase the amount of food I eat. It's going to increase my hunger.
Yeah, that's correct. And then they make it very salty to make you crave for the sweet soft drink.
Right. And we've
s-
talked about this before, the combination between
Yeah.
salt
Yeah,
and sugar.
and then this fructose soft drink
Right.
make you hunger for this salty food.
French fries.
That's correct. So these food companies, in their smart scientific attempt, they quite successfully made us eat a lot more than we really need.
And Dr. Kim, is it true that you can actually create an addiction to a particular product? So I am going to crave a Kit Kat, not a Crunchy.
We call it sugar blasting. Sugar blasting.
What does that mean?
When you eat something, and then that food has a high content of sugar, and then at that time when you eat it, the body secretes a lot of insulin,
Right.
and then that insulin triggers a certain circuitry in our brain, and the body remembers
Right.
it, brain remembers it,
Huh.
and then brain later on kind of crave for exact the
That
same taste.
specific formulation.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's relatively easy. If you make a certain food very sweet, and then that sweetness is coupled with other taste, actually, because of the sugar blasting, people remember other tastes too. So people crave for that. That's why these soft drink companies try very hard to make younger children drink their soft drinks. And they
Right,
remember the taste forever.
Right. Well, we're hearing now that they're targeting infants. Is that
Infants.
correct? With
That's correct.
advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why there are so many pouring contracts. You know what pouring contracts are, right?
Say more about it.
For example, in the States, the soft drink companies pay on the average $100,000 per school, so that in the public school,
Right.
they allow only one brand of soft drink inside the school.
So you're telling me that my junior high school, let's say if we went back a number of years, that only Coca-Cola could be served in
Yeah.
my junior high school.
And then because of
in
the,
exchange for $100,000, which
$100,000.
goes to what? To the school programs,
yeah,
that
because
kind of thing?
these days our educational system was
Having cuts everywhere.
That's correct, and
Right.
then the schools find this thing quite irresistible.
Right.
So we can understand that,
Right.
but the health consequence of this pouring contract is something very serious.
Well, what does it do to consumption? I mean, in terms of children that might not be exposed to pop, now it's in their
yeah,
school.
Yeah. So as a consequence, on the average, children drink 50 gallons of soft drink a year. And then one statistic says that if you drink one pop, one soft drink every day, the chance of getting diabetes goes up by 61%.
Good grief. So anybody that would hear that statistic, you think they would just, that would be it, no more pop.
But easier said than done.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, we've talked about pop in school, but for even younger children, I mean, they drink juice. Is high fructose corn syrup an ingredient in juice that children
Yeah.
will be having potentially?
Yeah, please have a look at the ingredients.
Take a look at the
Yeah,
ingredients.
even though it looks so natural,
Right.
but many fruit juice, they add a lot of fructose.
Right, because I hear kids, that's what they ask for. I want some juice. I want some juice. So they're potentially being exposed at these ages where they're holding little sippy cups, toddlers, and they're starting to already get this addiction to this sugar at a very,
So,
very early age.
Addiction or customer loyalty.
Customer loyalty, that's diplomatic.
Yeah. It starts a lot earlier than you think. It starts with baby formula.
Wow. Okay, let's
Yeah.
talk about baby
Yeah,
formula.
please look at the ingredients of baby formula.
What am I going to see?
Fructose.
High fructose corn syrup.
Yeah. So baby formula, I believe, is one of the deep, less discussed root cause of this juvenile obesity and adult obesity too. So
I just want to cut you off for a
Yeah.
second because formula versus breastfeeding has been a raging debate
yeah,
for the last little while. We're seeing 50% on this side are saying, you know, you're not getting what you need through breast milk, you have to supplement with
Yeah.
formula. 50% are saying, are you kidding? Breast milk has everything in it. What's your opinion?
I'm definitely in favor of breastfeeding. Formula has serious problems. At first, it does this exactly what we call sugar blasting.
Right.
So
To an infant now.
to an infant, and
is
then
incredible.
their brain is the most vulnerable at the time. And then within 10 days of their birth, if you blast children's brain with this formula, the brain starts the program of this high content of sugar taste.
Right. Requirement, craving.
Yeah. And then some people quite convincingly argue that people's sense of hunger, people's eating habit, their hunger control mechanism, they're all confused for the rest of their life.
Which leads to them potentially having a problem with weight for the
Yeah,
remainder of
yeah.
their life.
Also, another
that's incredible.
Yeah, another thing is it is virtually impossible to overfeed a baby when breastfeeding, but there's no exception that baby formula feeding always leads to an overfeeding.
Overfeeding.
So, at an early age of a person's life, their sense of what is full
Right.
or what is
Right.
hungry is totally
It's
confused.
all skewed.
Yeah. Another thing which troubles me most is these companies that produce baby formula. They did so many ungentlemanlike things to push this consumption of baby formula. For example,
So you're talking about the promotion of it?
yeah. For example, they spread rumors that breastfeeding is not really helpful to maintain the body shape of mothers, which is totally not true.
Which is going to hit them where it hurts because we've already talked about how we live in a thin culture.
Yeah.
So if a woman's struggling with her weight after a child anyway, she's
And-
probably going to be susceptible
and
to that
in-
information.
Yeah, in Africa and then among the Afro-Americans in the States, they kind of spread rumors that breastfeeding leads to higher incidence of AIDS in children.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then they tried so many times, very hard, that they wanted to prove that breastfeeding leads to higher incidence of breast cancer, but they failed. So they couldn't prove that. So, but they did so many this kind of promotional things.
Right, and you're being incredibly diplomatic, calling it ungentlemanlike conduct.
Yeah.
Probably
So-
some harsher words
yeah,
flying
so-
around than that. These food
Yeah.
ingredients, these appetite inducement, addiction.
Attacks on children starts really, really early. Within a couple of hours of their birth, this industrial attack on children,
They're already plugged in,
Yeah.
plugged into the grid.
Yeah.
Wow.
every year, 40,000 TV advertisement on foods. The children are exposed to 40,000 times of advertisement on candies, soft drinks, snacks, all these kind of things. A few subliminal messages leads to changes the voting behavior. But think about what happens after 40,000 times.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're painting a picture of a jungle. I can't even imagine how we get through it. So, Dr. Kim, fast food must play a role here.
Yeah. In most of the fast food chains, in order to take care of this extra calories they're taking, they have to run 4 hours. But
Who runs 4 hours, Dr. Kim?
so this accumulation of extra calories.
Where does
so
it
this-
go?
Yeah, just obesity problem.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So, Dr. Kim, we're talking a little bit about the food industry. Does the pharmaceutical industry play a role here as well?
They so far, quite fortunately, they didn't play too big a role, but they are planning. They already see this thing as a huge market.
How so? How do they imagine that they can make some money off this as well?
For example, they make obesity a disease. They started their public campaign.
Classify it as a disease is what you're saying?
Yeah. What it means, it sounds so benign.
Right.
Oh, this is such a serious problem, so we should treat it as a disease. But what it means is
Right.
only doctors can talk about it. Only pharmaceutical drugs can be used. So
I understand now.
They want to make it their own market,
Right,
excluding all other so-called competitors.
So calling it a disease is going to eliminate a lot of other people from being able to support and encourage people out of obesity. It's now going to be having to be handled by pharmaceutical drugs in a medical environment.
Once it is classified as a disease, you and I talk about like this becomes
Right.
illegal.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So we better talk fast then. So what about growth hormones?
You know, this cattle industry, since 1950s, they use a lot of growth hormones.
Right.
For example, in Korea, the cows, compared with the same cows 50 years
Right.
ago, they are twice as big as before.
This would be comical if it weren't so scary.
And problem is, we eat those meat.
Right. And then what happens to us?
Children grow a lot faster than they should grow naturally. Not only in stature,
Right.
but weight-wise,
Right.
they grow a lot faster.
Right.
Other symptoms like early puberty. These days, we hear the news of even 5-year-old girls
Oh,
begin to have menstruation.
incredible.
Because of this stimulated growth and then bombarded this huge amount of growth hormones. They are basically meant for cows. And children take this growth hormone with the meat.
So, Dr. Kim, do parents know this?
I'm glad that more and more parents begin to know about this.
Who would feed their children this meat that has growth hormones in it if they truly knew what it was doing? Would this not put an end to this beef industry as
So
we
that-
know it,
that-
if people knew about
Yeah,
this?
that's why I am hopeful that only if we spread this news, we can make a big difference. You know, like the Bible say, who in the right mind will give their children bad things?
Right,
So only if we know, we can make changes.
right, right. So, Dr. Kim, let's take a brief break here. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the causes of obesity. Thanks for being with me.
We really believe that there is a great market out there for healthier eating, for a healthier lifestyle. We know that American parents, including a lot of the people who work at this school, are working longer and harder hours than ever before. That's why almost half the American food dollar today is spent eating out, and an increasing percentage of that dollar in the so-called fast food places.
Hi, and welcome back. Dr. Kim, before the break, you mentioned that we are being exposed to 40,000 ads per year. What's the impact of something like that?
Very serious. Children cannot distinguish information from advertisement. So especially young children under the age of 10 cannot really distinguish that this is selling something or they are teaching something.
So you're saying a child doesn't know when the show's ended and the ad has begun?
That's correct. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So they are programmed without protection. I don't know whether this is a good analogy, but when an adult have even though it's a consensual, have a sex with a minor, we call it a rape.
Right.
I wouldn't hesitate a moment to call this a rape.
Because we're talking about defenseless children.
That's correct.
They can't protect
Yeah.
themselves.
These young minds are programmed to serve the commercial purposes of these huge food companies.
Right. And Dr. Kim, it's not just TV shows, right? I mean, we're seeing this whole new generation of children doesn't know life without computers, without Game Boys.
They spend so much time in front of this.
How much time
4 hours on the average in front of TV
per day?
per day. It's wrong to believe that we have no time for exercise. They are spending 4 hours a day in front of TV, and you cannot say you have no time.
Well, when you think about 4 hours, I'm thinking it must be after school when they come home,
Yeah,
or in the
that's-
evenings,
that's
I
correct,
suppose.
that's correct.
And I would think too that the way parents are stretched now, you've got both parents working, money's tight, that TV probably operates as something of a babysitter for kids these
Cheaper
days.
babysitter. Yeah, compared with taking them to athletic activities, this is safer and then cheaper.
Right.
So I can understand that, but I'd like to point out at the same time the problems associated with that.
There's a huge impact from that.
Yeah, and then another serious problem with a lot of TV watching is they snack more while watching TV.
Right. So they're eating more.
Yeah.
And they're probably reaching for things that contain the fructose and the palm oil.
Yeah, and salty foods, salty snacks.
Right.
And then at the same time, they are constantly being stimulated with this advertisement. So screen time, how much time you spend in front of TV and computer,
Right.
has a direct consequence on obesity.
Undoubtedly. That makes complete sense. So when we think about, the parent's perspective, because obviously computers play a role as being educational as well. There's reasons for kids to be on the computer. Parents are stretched. How do we, as parents, do something about this with our children? How do we control their time without having a massive rebellion on our hands?
We all know that we parents these days are very reluctant or less willing to confront children.
Right. And why is that, Dr. Kim?
I think it's a social trend.
Right.
So we are less confronting.
So less boundaries
And then
for our children?
for the last 50 years, so-called child psychology
Right.
led us to believe that we should not confront them, we should not discipline them. So basically, what we are looking at is a generation of overindulgence with a lot of freedoms, a lot more freedoms than we had when we were children.
Right.
So if they exercise their freedom in what kind of food they eat,
Right.
and how much they eat, when they eat. So we see a problem here.
So Dr. Kim, you said 4 hours a day is what children are generally spending in front of the television or the computer. So what can we as parents do to cut back on the amount of time that they're in front of the screen?
We should reduce our TV watching time ourselves.
So maybe set a different role model for them.
And then what I usually recommend is absolutely no TV on Saturday morning.
I can't even imagine the screams you'd hear in most households
Yeah.
if you tried to pass that.
It's very difficult because as parents, we are less willing to confront the conflict with the children these days.
So you're not talking just about television, you're talking about generally.
Especially the conflict regarding TV
Right.
watching is the most serious conflict, they say, that exists in the family.
So parents are just kind of stepping back and letting their children
Watch
do what they do.
Yeah, and these days there has been a debate. I think it's a very, very foolish debate. Is it okay to put a TV in children's rooms?
And what do you think about that, Dr. Kim?
Absolutely no.
Yeah, I can tell before you answer
Yeah.
the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not good. So we should do at least reduce our own TV watching time. And then absolutely no TV on Saturday morning.
That's going to make a big difference if you can get that passed in your household.
That's some difference. I don't know whether it's enough, but the obvious fact is that we spend too much time.
Right.
Ourselves, adults, we spend too much time in front of TV.
Right.
And then
We set that example.
Yeah, and then the children also spend too much time, and that leads to obesity.
Right. And you said before, 4 hours a day, and we're saying we have no time. We have no time to exercise. That's what we hear from adults all the time.
Yeah, and the 4 hours you're spending in front of TV, and you say.
Suddenly you have 4 hours to go out for a run or go play some tennis or whatever.
But again, let me point out that it's easier said than done.
Absolutely. Well, we have a lot of statistics that reflect exactly what you just said. So, Dr. Kim, we talked about so many different things that lead to obesity. We talked about some of these new ingredients in our food. We've talked about a whole wide topic of things. So what are some other ways that we can feel more empowered? What are some things that we can do generally to combat this obesity, which is clearly getting out of control?
We believe that parents should be more involved. And then there are so many myths. We should change our way of thinking on certain things. For example, people think if parents start using more influence, they are afraid that children are likely to get anorexia or bulimia.
That's going to be the backlash.
That's what they say. But we know that these two diseases, like anorexia and bulimia, even though they're very serious,
Right.
this is a very rare diseases.
Right. How
And
rare?
Very rare. 1 or 2 out of 100,000. And then it is limited to white and affluent classes.
So clearly not impacting the population as a whole.
And that they can afford to see specialists, and that there are actually very good, effective drugs against it.
Right.
So, because of this distant and rare possibilities of these rare diseases, parents do not exercise their influence over what children eat and how much they eat. It's
Right.
absolute nonsense.
Right.
We have the statistics that demonstrates that the more parents exercise their influence, the healthier the children's eating habit, and as a consequence, fewer cases of obesity.
Right. So you think parents just don't want to be a nag? They don't want to hassle their children?
Yeah.
Feel like they're hemming them in and taking away their
That's not good.
creative opportunity
Yeah,
or what have
that's,
you?
That's not good.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kim, don't we as these biological bodies know when we're full?
That's another myth. Unless we are taught, not many people know what is full.
So we don't know when to stop eating, generally, is
That's
what you're
correct.
saying.
So if especially children are programmed to eat a lot of food for the rest of their lives, they don't know what it is to be full. So
Right.
they keep on eating.
Is there any way that we can overcome that?
The best thing is not to start that wrong idea
right.
of being full. Actually, once you have that habit, it's very, very difficult to change it.
Right. So you're saying, you know, for new parents, start out on the right foot. Now, what about for parents who have kids who are already in these processes, doing this?
Yeah, one study that is quite frightening is once children reach the age of 10, it's too late. What that study says is that before the age of 8 and 9, that's the moment where our parents' influence or our nagging or whatever.
Right.
But after 10, they say it's too late.
Right. So you've got to get them in that window. You've got to be able to be a parent that's interacting with your child in a way that you can work with them and helping to educate them differently.
That's correct.
So you're saying that we don't know when we're full, and we hold back on hassling our children because we want to be tolerant and give them all these freedoms. What about our school system? I mean, surely when kids are going to school, they're having an opportunity to run around the field, and
Yeah.
isn't that helping?
Parents believe or want to believe that when we send our children to school,
Right.
the school will take care of these physical activities. But you know, see what happens in California. They removed most of the budget for physical education. And then school, on the other hand, they want to believe that these physical activities are taken care of by parents. So
it's the ultimate pass the buck syndrome then.
that's correct.
Parents
So,
think the schools
yeah.
are doing it, the schools think
Yeah,
parents are
and
doing
then the parents should be more involved in physical activities and cafeteria activities in school. So we cannot really pass the buck to school anymore.
Right, because what are cafeterias serving, by the way? What kind of food do they serve?
Oh, it's nice to know that there are some changes these days, but mostly highly unhealthful foods. Yeah, French fries,
Right, of
pizzas,
course. Yeah.
and
So fast food.
soft drinks.
Right.
These fast food chains quite successfully made an inroads in the cafeterias of the public school system. Of course, you know, the key word there is again customer loyalty.
Right.
They should start earlier, but the problem is they are successful there.
Right. Yeah, they're making money, so
Yeah.
it's working.
Yeah, and then the children become accustomed
Right.
to this fast food, and they grew up with a wrong idea of what the right food is.
Well, and I was just going to ask the question, and you're just segueing into that. Don't we naturally know what we should eat?
We are supposed to.
Yeah. Don't we
But,
crave what our
but
body
the-
is actually
yeah,
requiring?
but if we are bombarded with this wrong foods,
Right.
since when we are very young, that natural ability to choose
Right.
or to crave for the right food, that ability itself is weakened.
Right. So the program is set from when we're a child. So we can no longer know that actually right now I'm low in a particular nutrient and I need to eat broccoli or I'll crave broccoli.
Yeah, for example, such high calorie food, and then meat,
Right.
this highly saturated fat. There are studies that say that once people begin to taste those foods,
Right.
they keep on craving for
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you set a tone.
So that kind of proves what I just mentioned, that we may be losing our own ability to crave for what we need.
What naturally we need.
Yeah. We are going against that natural protection we have.
Right. Is there any role in here for artificial sweeteners?
Yeah. Artificial sweeteners are actually, they're just artificial, and then quite contrary to what they believe, that's a very unhealthful product.
So it's not actually going to benefit us if we're cutting out our high fructose corn syrup and replacing it with Splenda or one of these other sweeteners.
Yeah, it is not a substitute for sugar. It is not a substitute of high fructose.
Right.
It's just another food additive.
Right. It's just fooling our taste buds then.
It is very unhealthy.
Right. So that's not the answer. Okay. So we want the answers. We want to know what we can do differently. Give us some ideas. How can we start to take the power back and start to become, in the driver's seat of this issue? What can we do, Dr. Kim?
I should mention again, the parents should get more involved.
Right. So get involved. If you're a parent, you're watching this, get more involved.
And then parents should be more involved in the physical activities themselves.
So become that role model.
Yeah, there's a definite statistical correlation between the obesity of parents and obesity of children.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So physical activities, that just runs through the generations.
Right. Right.
And then eating habit should be changed definitely. What I would really like to emphasize here is we should do more home cooking. For example, 2 weeks of eating outside leads to extra 2 pounds.
Right.
Americans these days eat, you can say 40% of their time outside. That's way too much. And because of this industrial and commercial competitions, when we eat outside, we are exposed to a lot higher calories. So eating at home more often is one of the key things we can do.
Right. So with some planning, because again, people are going to make the argument, I have no time. So turn off your television, sit down and meal plan.
And then when mothers begin to cook more often, they themselves become more conscious of what healthy food should be.
Right. Right. So I'm curious, we see oftentimes on packaging fortified with vitamins and minerals.
Yeah.
And what's the deal with that? Is that something important to consider?
I think this marketing, so they fortified vitamins, very, very minor amount.
Right.
Yeah, ignorably minor amount, but that allows the company to make health claims.
Right.
So just because they added the minor amount of vitamins, they can say, this food has this is health benefits, while at the same time they are shoveling sugars and fructose in the same food.
Right.
So
it's kind of the bait and switch. Look over here and get excited about the fortified, but what you're not really understanding is how much high fructose corn syrup, et cetera, is in this product.
So whenever I read this health claims, something fortified, I kind of laugh at them.
Right.
Yeah, it's not
It doesn't pan out, is what you're saying. It doesn't hold water.
It's not right.
Yeah. What about dietary supplements?
Some dietary supplements are very good. Some dietary supplements are dangerous.
Right. How do we distinguish between?
For example, we are exposed to such advertisements like 10 pounds in 3 weeks type of advertisement of dietary supplements.
Right.
That's not right.
Right.
One criteria I would recommend every parent when they are considering using dietary supplement for
Right.
their children. When normal people take this dietary supplement,
Normal weight.
normal weight people take this dietary supplement, do they still lose weight? If yes, that's something
That's
dangerous.
not something to do then. It's not a good drug. Not a
So
good.
safety.
Safety above all.
Yeah. And then we are talking about the body of children.
Right.
And then in relation to dietary supplement, I'd like to mention the benefit of green tea. Yeah, green tea seems to be one of the most safe but quite effective help
Right, I've heard this.
yeah, for children to lose weight.
Right. Well, I've heard a lot of women talking about starting to add green tea to their diet and noticing that they're actually shedding 5-10 pounds over a few months.
Yeah, and then it contains a lot of antioxidants and a lot of vitamins.
Right.
So green tea,
a lot of benefit to
I
it.
recommend every parent.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Kim, Halloween.
Yeah,
What do we do about Halloween?
birthday parties,
Yeah.
Halloween,
Christmas.
Christmas. These kind of sugar blasting occasions.
Sugar blasting. Sounds apt.
Sugar blasting is a medical term, actually.
Is that right?
Yeah.
No, it's very descriptive.
Yeah, and then Halloween, they have started the aftermath of Halloween. They usually collect candies good enough for 2 years, and they consume them.
Right.
We should stop right away.
Yeah.
Sending children out on Halloween days. That's not right.
So I think Dr. Kim, you're going to have your hands full trying to boycott Halloween. I completely understand the benefit to us to do something like that.
But I have been saying that it's easier said than done.
Easier said than done.
If
Absolutely.
somebody asks, Dr.
Yeah.
Kim, are you doing or just saying everything you just said? No, I cannot say that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the most important point you make in all of this is that we need to change the way we think about
That's
things.
correct.
Yeah. Because it's so easy for us to go to sleep on the whole issue, frankly. We're all tired, we're all overworked, everybody is busy. We come home, we want to lie on the couch and turn on the television. So Dr. Kim, you're telling us that we have an option here. We need to get up off the couch, role model for our children differently, become involved in their lives. What can we do about creating community and education with other parents, possibly?
That's correct.
Talk to the schools, see if we can't lobby for healthier food in the cafeterias.
It's quite encouraging
Yeah.
to see that it's happening.
Right.
So it's not really at the end of the story here.
Right, exactly. I think what we're all looking for is a quick fix. We all want that instant pill, which is probably why diets are so incredibly successful now. We've seen the emergence of so many fad diets lately. But what you're talking about here is very homegrown, down-to-earth common sense, which unfortunately isn't all that common.
Yeah, and then my point is we should start our rethinking early,
Right,
starting from baby formula.
right. All the new parents that are watching, start now. Something you said to me too, tighten your waistband while you're eating.
Oh yeah, that's something people ignore. We can reduce the amount of food people take if they have the habit of tightening the belts when
Right.
they eat. So something like that. Something as easy
So it's
as
not
that.
complex, it's not rocket science,
Yeah.
but it's
So-
another tool.
Yeah, so it's something cute, but it's proven. So before go to a meal, just tighten your belt a little bit. It reduces the food amount you take every meal.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for being here today. We've covered a lot of ground. This can seem like a very daunting topic, and it certainly affects a very high percentage of the population. But there are things that we can do, and it's not a quick fix. We're not giving people a miracle answer here, but we need to change the way that we think about our relationship to food, to our children, to our communities. So I appreciate, again, thank you for being my guest.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.